Wonderful.
Wonderful. Okay, here we begin. Daf Yuzayin, very easy once you see the graphics over here. What we're discussing over here, if you remember yesterday, we discussed this building over here in my picture, this dome building. It's called the Beis HaMoiked, okay? And here's another view of it right over there from that view over there, that building over there. Now, this building, we said, had 4 chambers. Let's get this correct. It had 4 chambers. One to keep sheep there. Sheep that was checked, that right over here, you check. The sheep was like a pen. And the kosher sheep used for the carbon tamid. Another one was to have, we said yesterday that this other one was to have the baking of the lechem haponim, right? If you remember. And then we had another one where you bought the tokens, and then another one, you actually had a mikvah over there and a little fire over there. Okay, that was the building with the 4 chambers, the little 4 chambers. That's what we had. Now, just to review, and this is important to understand where we're at. We had a Mishnah in Talmud that said that lishkis hataloyim, which lishkis hataloyim means the room where you kept all the sheep, that was in the Sephonis Maravis, northwest. So we asked a contradiction from this Mishnah, which says that the lishkis hataloyim was in the northwest, from this Mishnah in Midot, where it says Maravis deroimis, the southwest, was where the sheep animal was, not in the northwest. So it's between those 4 chambers, it was in the southwest. So the question is, you have a contradiction between one Mishnah and another Mishnah. So we spent the whole yesterday to answer that this Mishnah in Midos is not a question, because there's only one author of Masechta Midos, Rav Lezer ben Yaakov, and he wrote Masechta Midos. So he can argue on the Tana of Mishnayis Talmud. So that's not a question. It's a different Tana. That was one teretz. Now we begin our Gemara. Our Gemara begins on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, second line. It's probably one of the shorter dafim in Shas. Rav Ada Bereid Rav Yitzchak Amar. Rav Ada wants to take another teretz over here. And he says that really, your question was, is the lishka in the northwest or in the southwest? It can't be in north and south. How could something be north or south? The answer is it is possible. Hai lishka aktuya miktsai. It was in both ends. It looked like it was both ends. When you come from the east, it looks like it's, when you come from the north, it looks like the office was in the south. If you're coming in from the south, it looks like it was in the north. What is the Gemara saying? The Gemara is saying over here that, let's put the right picture up. Here it is. You see, this is the picture. Simple. It's not in the corner like I had in the previous picture. It's right somewhere in the, like off the corner of south. Okay? So if you're walking in from this direction, from the north, you think the building is in the south. And that's why that Mishnah, the Mishnah in Midos, said it was in the south. If you walk in through the south, you think the Lishkas HaTaloyim was in the north. So that's how we answer it. Both are correct. It was off the north and off the south. It was somewhere in between. That's what the Gemara just says right now. Okay, the Asim Mitzafin, if you walked in from the Tzafin, from the north, you thought the office was in the south. The Asim Midarim, but if you walked in from the south, it looked like it was in the north. Now the Gemara says a point. Umistabra, the Maravis Duroimis Habe. I'm going to tell you that it was more closer to the south than to the north. In fact, in the picture that I have here, it's more like in the south. It's not in the north. And the reason why the Gemara is going to prove it that it was in the south, because there's actually another contradiction in the 2 Mishnahs regarding where the office of the lechem haponim was. You see, if you look at the Mishnah, in the Mishnah clearly in Mido says, Droimis Mizrachis, I have it underlined, in the southeast was Lishka Oise Lechem Apon, is the office where they made the Lechem Apon, southeast, okay? This point. Now, in the Mishnah and Talmud, it doesn't actually say where the Lechem Aponim was. It just says, you start from Tzvoinis Marabis, you start from northwest, and one is Chaysumois, one is Beisamoikes, and the final one, number four is Lechem Aponim. So now what we're going to understand that the Mishnah in Talmud views, I don't know, in your Gemaras, do you have like a picture on the bottom of the page? Like I have it over here. There should be one, I think. According to the Kasha, what the Gemara is saying is that in the Mishnah and Talmud, if you walked out of Telaim and you walked around on the right, going right, like facing Telaim, if you're facing the Lishkas Telaim and you move to your right, so you go to Chaismois, Moiked, and Lechem Aponim. Lechem Aponim, according to the Mishnah and Talmud, would be located Safin Mizrach, northeast, Safin Mizrach. And what did the Mishnah and Talmud say? What did the Mishnah and Mido say? That Lechem Aponim was Droimis Mizrachis, southeast. So now you have another question from the Mishnah Midos to the Mishnah Talmud, with the Mishnah Talmud implies that the Lechem Hapanim was in the northeast, not what it says in the Mishnah Talmud. So now the Gemara is going to give you a simple parrot. And therefore, Umashanina, we answered that question. Amrav Huna Bered Rav Yeshua, Mar Kochoshev Derech Yamin, Umar Kochoshev Derech Small. That means that the way we answered this question is, look here in the picture, that the Mishnah, let's start from the Mishnah in Talmud. The Mishnah Midas always remains the same. The Lechem, there it clearly says that the Lechem Aponim was Dara Mizrach, southeast. So how do you reconcile that the Mishnah and Talmud would agree that the Lechem Hapanim was southeast? The answer is because the Mishnah in Talmud means that the guy walked to his left. He started in the other direction. So imagine you're facing the Lishkas Hatloyim, and you walk this way, and 1, 2, and this would be, I guess, number 4, because I'm sorry, this would be Lishkas Hatloyim is 1, this would be number 2, and this would be number 3, and the final one would be Lechem Apanim, which would be number 4, which would be located Dara Mizrach. Exactly. So Mishnah and Talmud would agree with the Masechta Midas. If you learn that the Lishkas Hatloim was more closer to the south, but if you don't agree with that, if you say that the Lishkas Hatloim was off the south and off the north, but more in the north, then you can't reconcile that. Because if you go to the left, Lishkas Hatloim, and you go this way, 1, 2, 3, then you're going to put the Lechem Atomim by the Dorim Mariv, by southwest. And then you're still going to have a question to Masechta Midos, which puts the Lishkas Lechem Atomim, Lishkas Lechem Aponim always by the southeast. So that's why we must conclude what the Gemara is trying to say is that the Lishkas Hataloyim was granted. It was not all in the south, but it was more closer to the south. And yet, people who walked in from the south thought, since it's not connected to the wall, it was more closer to the north. But really, it was in the south. That's the whole point that the Gemara is going to make. The way we answered the Lechem Aponim and Lechem Aponim, Mar Kachashav Derech Yamin, one was counting if you went around on the right side. Umar Kachashav Derech Small, and the Mishnah in Talmud was going if you go around in the left side. Now we go to Yud Zayin Omud Sheni. If you say that the Lishkas Hatloim was in the southwest, you have a very good answer between the stira, between the Lechem Aponim and the Lechem Aponim. They both, the Mishnah in Talmud and the Mishnah in Masechta Midos, could both agree that what? That the Lechem Aponim was southeast. But because Eli Amrit Sfoinis Marabas Hava. But if you're going to say that the Lishkas Hatuloim was closer in the north, then if you're going to go 3, starting from the left, soif my terutz of the lechem upon him. What kind of answer is this that you're giving lechem upon him? Because what's going to happen is, as I explained, if you do it that way, right? If you're going to do it that way, then if you start from the lishkas atloyim and you go derech small, you're going to put the lishkas lechem upon him, daram mariv, southwest, and the Mishnah Midas says it was southeast. Elamai, the lishkas atloyim was not here. This is incorrect. But the lishkas atloyim was more closer to the north. So therefore, you can go derech small and have the lishkas upon him in the southeast, which is exactly what the opinion, what the Mishnah Midas says. It was located in the southeast. That's what the Gemara says. It was in the southwest. Shmami, no, that's correct. Now the Gemara just takes care of one small thing. But didn't we learn? Whenever you're trying to do something, always start from your right side, not from your left side. So how can the Mishnah and Talmud only work if you counting from the left side? If you're going around from your left hand. So the Gemara says, now that expression called, you should always start from your right side. That's only if you're doing a mitzvah or service in the Beis Hamikdash. Here it's just making an accounting exactly, locating exactly where the different offices was. So you don't have to be makbet to start from the right. You can actually start in the clockwise motion, starting from the left and going around. This din, by the way, as a side, we'll just leave this for now. Is that is that halacha that if you are coming towards the Torah, you take out the Torah from the Aron, you should go to your right side. And when you bring it back also to the Aron, you go around on your right side, not the left side, but the right side. It's based on this. But I heard one ha'ara that's very interesting. I know in our Shari that when let's say on Shabbos, when the Chazan goes Shema Yisrael, and he faces the tzibur, and then he does Echad Elokeinu, right? When he takes out the Torah, he says Echad Elokeinu. Then he turns around and says, bows to the Aron, to the ark, and says Gadol Hashem Iti. So 2 questions. One, the question is that if you're saying that everybody should do it together, you should be facing the Olam, not facing the Aron. But the other problem is once you turn around to face the ark, so then when now you have to bring the Torah to the bima, you should actually go to your right, not to your left. So that's an interesting question. Anyway, these are just side points. Next piece of Gemara. Shekayin Gadol Makrif. We learned in the Mishnah that one of the advantages of a Kohen Gadol is he could take Chelik Barosh. He could be Makrif. Chelik Barosh means he could go say, I want to be offering the carbon, whichever carbon that's on for that day. I want to be the one doing the service. And he could take the best piece of meat from the distribution. Tanar Rabbanan. Kate said, Makrav Chelik Barosh. How does the Kohen Gadol decide? What's an example of the Kohen Gadol deciding he's taking first? Omer, he could say, Oilazu ani Makrav. I'm taking, he sees a carbon oil, he says, I'm taking it. I'm doing the service for this oil. Mincha zu ani Makrav. I'm doing the service for this mincha. So that's the Kohen Gadol. He can walk in any day, he says, I'm up. I'm taking over here. Kate said, Noitel Chelik Barosh. How does he take the best? How does he divide from the distribution? He could take the best. Omer, he could say, I want to take a piece of this chatas. Oshem zeh ani yochel. For this oshem, I want to eat. Pashtus, it means that he eats it for himself. He can't take the whole thing and distribute it to his friends. But we honor the Kohen Gadol by giving him the right to say at any distribution, he could take a piece, and he could take the best piece from the distribution. Now, we're learning the noitel chala mishtei chalas. This is very important because it has to do with shvuas. He could take one chala from the Shtei Halechem. Because it's this week's Parsha, I just wanted to make sure that everybody's clear what the Shtei Halechem is. This was on Shavuos, right? Where the Torah says you count 50 days of Omer, right? What we do with middle of the 49 days till the 50th day. Then on the 50th day, which is Shavuos, the Torah says, besides the Musaf, besides the Karban Tamid, the Torah tells us, this is this week's parsha, that's why I'm bringing it in. You should make two breads like chometz digga breads, right? Chometz teyafeno. Each one should be a sroinim, soilus, a tenth of an eighth of soilus, made of flour. Bikurim Lashem. Now, what are you going to do with that? And I'm going to explain you what the whole service is. So together with the lechem, besides the musaf, this has nothing to do with that. Just because you bake these special breads, two of them, you have to bring shivas kvasim tmimim b'nei shana. You have to bring 7 sheep without blemish, a year old, for a carbon oila. Upar ben bakar 1 cow, the elim shnoim and 2 rams. That will be an oila Lashem, right? And you do the regular libations. Then you bring a seir chatas, another seir chatas, nothing to do with the musaf. Also, for this lechem, in honor of the bread, the 2 baked breads. I'll tell you what you're going to do with those 2 baked breads in a moment. Here's the point. 2 sheep you should bring for a shlomim. With the shlomim, after you shecht it, there's a part called chazav v'shaik, the breast and the leg. The heinif hakoyin oisam alechem bekurim tunul lifnei Hashem al shnei kavasim. You take the breads and you hold it together with the shlomim meat, which is the chazav v'shaik, and you wave it in 4 directions: up, down, right, left. And then once that is done, kodesh yu lashem lakoyin. This is a very holy bread for the koyin. That this chametz digga bread obviously was not thrown onto the mizbeach, because no chametz was allowed to be thrown on the mizbeach. But this bread had a din like a carbon chatas, that you could only eat it in the Beis HaMikdash proper, and you had a day and a night to eat it, right? So that was called the Shtei Halechem. What was the point of these karbonos? The point of these karbonos was that it allowed you to bring karbonos, a mincha, from the new flour, from the new crop. The new crop we could eat at home starting from the 2nd day of Pesach. But to actually offer it up in the service, it had to be after you did the service of the Shtei Halechem. That allowed the new flour to and the new crop to be brought as offerings in the Beis HaMikdash. And then the Chumash ends off, the crossing beds. That day is a holy day, Shavuos, and I point out to you that the Torah never tells you what day Shavuos is, because the Torah just tells you it's 50 days after Pesach, but it doesn't, it's 50 days after you start counting, but it doesn't tell you the day, because sometimes Nisan can be full and El and Iyar could be half or something like that, or they both could be Mole. So sometimes it could be on Hey Sivan, Vav Sivan, Zayin Sivan. By us, it's always on Vav Sivan, but that's the point. So what is the point? That the Shtei Halechem has 2 breads, 2 chametz digga breads. So the Gemara says, the Kohen Gadol takes one of those breads you give to the Kohen Gadol. It's a huge bread. That was one of them was given to the Kohen Gadol. Now, then the Mishnah says, the Brisa says, you take 4 or 5 from the lechem aponim, which means we know that there are 12 showbreads. So it seems that according to Chachamim, you don't give half to the Kohen. There's no such a thing of half to the Kohen. Either he takes 5, which is less than half of 12, which is 6, you take 5. Or sometimes 4, and it's not clear why you spend 4 or 5. What does that mean? Rabbi says, La'olam chamish. You always give 5. It's split between Aaron and his kids. Half go to Aaron, half go to his sons. Now, according to Rabbi says 2 points. Number 1, the Kohen Gadol always takes half. So if he takes half of the lechem upon him, he should take 6, because there are 12 breads. Why is he only taking 5? Because 2, they skim off the top. They don't give it. That's not up for distribution. Why? Because they gave it always to the incoming family as a gift. That the incoming family has a special gift. They get the 2 showbreads, the showbreads. Then the rest of the showbreads are split equally between the incoming family and the outgoing family. And the reason why they gave the extra showbreads to the incoming family is because they're going to be cleaning up and closing the doors after it was opened on Shabbos by the outgoing family, because they're leaving in the middle of Shabbos. So therefore, the top two was off the top. We take it off. So what's half of what's left over? 12 minus 2 is 10. Half of that is 5. Rebbe says you always give half to the Kohen Gadol. So the Gemara just wants to housekeep over here. Hagufa kasha. There's a contradiction in the Bryce itself. First, you start off and said that the Kohen Gadol by the Shtei Alechem could take one of the breads, 50% from the Shavuos breads. That's he could take half money. This piece over here, where I have my finger, this where the red is, that goes according to Rebbe. You could take half. Then it says Arba Chomish Mimaisa Lechem Aponim. Let's look at the second case. Arba Chomish Mimaisa Lechem Aponim. Asan, that would become very well Rabbanim, the Amri, Loy Shakal Palga, that the Kohen Gadol is not allowed to take half. You don't give him half, he could take almost half. That's why he takes only 5. Ema Seifa. So then look at the end of the Brisa. Rebbe Oimer Loilam Chomish. Rebbe says you always take 5. So it comes out, case 1, Reisha v'Seifa, case 1 and 3 is Rebbe, goes according to the opinion of Rebbe that the Kohen Gadol is permitted to take half. But the middle case is Rabbanan. So how could that be? So we have two approaches to answer the questions over here. First approach is Abaya. Abaya says Reisha u'mitzias Rabbanan. The first case and the middle case is the Rabbanan. How could the first case be the Rabbanan that you give one of the 2 chalas to the Kohen Gadol? That's 50%. That Rabbanan hold. You never give half to the Kohen Gadol. He's big, but you don't give him the half. The Rabbanan would agree. Beprusa, you don't break off the Shtei Alechem. You don't give him that. The lav oirech ara lameis of the Kohen Gadol. It wouldn't be appropriate to give to the Kohen Gadol a broken piece of bread. If you wanted to give him 60% of the 2 breads, you would have to break off one of the breads. So therefore, by the Shtei Alechem, we allow the Kohen Gadol to get half, one of the breads. He gets 50%. But by the lechem upon him, which is 12 different breads, there he gets half. He gets less than half. So that's why he gets 5. So now the Gemara says, then when would he get 4? When would he get 4? If everything goes according to Rabbanan. So the Gemara says like this, top of your Chesam and Aleph, my arba oichamish. When do you get 4 and when do you get 5? So again, the Rabbanan, the Amri, according to Rabbanan, they never took 2 off the top. There was an opinion of Rabbanan that it was 12 breads. 12 breads. Nichnas, the family of Kohen Gadol, Kohanim, that were taking over because the Kohanim switched positions on Shabbos. So a whole family came in on Shabbos. They would take Noitel Sheish. They take 6 of the breads and split it amongst them. The Yaitse, the family that just served in the base of Mikdash the past week, Noitel Sheish would take 6. So now there are 12 breads to split. Uschar hagofes losses loy. You don't take anything off the top for the closing of the doors. That the family that's coming in is going to have to close the doors of the base of Mikdash, which was a big job. They had extra work, basically. We're not going to give them any special reward. So mishteim esrei boya miflik. They have to divide up only 12 breads. So therefore, we don't want to give the Kohen Gadol all 6. So b'tzer chada mipalka, we take off 1 chamesh shekel. So we give him only 5. But according to Rabbi Huda, the Amar, there's an opinion of Rabbi Huda that really you don't split all 12. In fact, you give 2 extra to the nichnas noitel sheva. The incoming takes 7. Shtayim b'schar hagofes losses. They take an extra 2 for the closing of the doors. So they take 2 off the top plus the remaining 10 that split, 5 to them and 5 to the outgoing. So if the Kohen Gadol wants to participate, he takes less than, if he wants to take half, he can't take full half. You have to take off 1 less. He takes off 1 less, and then he would take only 4. So on a regular, according to Rabbi Yehuda, whose opinion is that the only amount of lechem aponims that were up for distribution was 10. 10. 5 to the ingoing and 5 to the outgoing. Now comes the Kohen Gadol. He says, I want to take a piece of that. I want half. We never give the Kohen Gadol half. Since there's 10 to split, half would be 5. We take off 1, and we only give the Kohen Gadol 4. That was what the case where you would give 4. Because there's an opinion, Rabbi Huda, that automatically only 10 is split, not 12. 2 off the top is given automatically to the new incoming family for the extra work that they're going to have to do. And that's how, so in review, that's how Abaya answers this Tiras HaGemara. There's three cases over here. The first case, that the Kohen Gadol takes half of the 2 chalas, because we don't want to, even the Rabbanan would agree that in this case, since there's only 2 chalas to split, and we don't want to break 1 chala, so we give him half of it, which is 1 chala. But normally, we always give him less than half. So if you're splitting 12, so half would be 6, then he would take 5. If you're splitting 10, half would be 5, so then the Kohen Gadol will take less than half, would be 4. But Rabbi says, L'olam chamesh, he always takes half, because Rabbi holds that a Kohen Gadol has such power that he could take 50%. He could take the half. That was the opinion of Rabbi explanation. And then one last thing. Rava says, Kula Rabbi. All 3 cases go according to Rabbi, that the Kohen Gadol takes half. So that makes sense. By the Shtei Alechem, he takes 1 of the 2 breads. B'sovalak Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabbi would hold like Rabbi Yehuda that when it came to lechem upon him, there was actually 10 to split. So but the way Rav is learning is that this middle case, Arba Chomish, was also Rabbi. Even though it says Rabbi Oime at the end, this Arba Chomish was also Rabbi. So the Gemara wants to explain that. Velamai Arba. Why? When was the case if you take 4? You should take 5. If the Kohen Gadol could take, if there's 10 to be split, then the Kohen Gadol, according to Rabbi, takes half. So then he takes always 5. When would be the case, according to Rabbi, that you take 4? Hachamish Ba'il Mishka, you should always take 5. Loi Kasha, there's another, it's not difficult. Ha de'ika mishma hamas akiv, ha de'leka mishma hamas akiv. If there was a mishma that happened, a third mishmar that happened to stay over Shabbos, a third group. Now, how is that possible? Why were there 3 groups there? One, you have the normal people, one going in and one going out. But let's say Yom Tov ended on a Thursday. Now, on Yom Tov, every mishmar, all Kahanim were allowed to serve on Yom Tov. Yom Tov was a free-for-all. So normally, if Yom Tov ended on a Thursday, you had to go home. That's it. The other mishmar, the normal mishmar, takes over. The normal family takes over. But let's say one group decided to stay over Shabbos because they can't leave on a Friday. They live far away and they can't leave on a Friday. So if there was a mishmar hamas akev, a family that stayed over and they so happened to be there for Shabbos, then we would actually give them 1 to split. We don't want to ignore them. They stayed a little extra after Yom Tov. We give them 1. So if we're giving them 1, if you're giving them 2, you're giving them 2, so then there's only 8 to split. So if the Kohen Gadol walked in, since there's only 8 to split, we would give him 4. Again, if you start off with 12, and 2 you take off the top because you're giving it to the incoming family, so then you have 10 to split. So normally, if the Kohen Gadol walks in, you can take 5, but then in a rare case, if it's after Yom Tov, or even if it's before Yom Tov and a family came early, so you had a third family to give 2 to. So we take from the 10, we take off another 2, and then there's 8 left over. The Kohen Gadol, he has a right to walk in. Oh, you're splitting 8. I'm taking half, which is 4. If there is a family that stayed over, there's not a family that stayed over. If there was a family, a third family that had to stay over, then what's the only distribution of the breads? There was only 8 breads to distribute, and the Kohen Gadol has a right to take half, 4. But if there was no family there, it's only 2 families there, then how much is being distributed? Only then 10 breads are being distributed. Therefore, v'shakal chomish, then the Kohen Gadol could take 5. So the way Rava learned is this part, noitul lachal shtei lechem, arba chomish memaisa lechem upon him, are both Rebbe. And then we have a third case, Rebbe Aimer Lo'ilam Chomish. So that's the Gemara asking on Rava, if Ihachi, my Rebbe Aimer Lo'ilam Chomish, why does the Brisa say, Rebbe says you take 5? From that, we can deduce that the Reisha and the middle are not, Rebbe is not the author of those statements. Kasha, that's a good question. And the Gemara remains with that difficulty. So basically what we learned today is the exact location of the Lishkas HaTloyim, which is where the animals were. It wasn't exactly in the north. It was actually in the south. It was a southwest. That's where it was. It was not in the corner, but it was somewhere off the corner, as we saw in the pictures. And then we discussed the Kohen Gadol, can he take 50% of the distribution, or he takes less than 50%? And that was a machlekes between Rebbe and the Chachamim. Okay. Yes, very good. Okay, very interesting Gemara coming up tomorrow. So also.
This was interesting.
Yeah. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.